Chris Renkel, Richard Skinner out here after another day of Bengals training camp. They headed inside Paycor Stadium for one last tune-up before the first game. I hate calling preseason games because they're not really games, they're more scrimmages. But this is the final tune-up before the Tampa Bay Bucks come to town, Skinny. And the big story today, obviously, Charlie Jones going down with what looked like a significant leg injury.
Yeah, during a 7-on-7, it looked like he was trying to avoid a collision with Joe Bocci. I thought Bocci had flipped him, but I think he was trying to avoid it. He might have made a little contact with Alan George. But the trainers were over him for a while. They actually moved the drill away from him, and then you see it out of the corner of your eye. The cart comes out, and that's never a good sign. Then you saw when Charlie actually had to be helped to the cart. That's not a good sign. And then teammates come over, patting Charlie on the helmet. That's usually not a good sign. But then we see Charlie in the locker room afterwards. And it seemed like some teammates were joking with him. He seemed to be in pretty good spirits. We all walked up to him to try to talk, and he said, let me take a shower first. And the Bengals decided, no, we're going to hold him off limits, which is probably right. I think they need to find out specifically what that injury is. I'm sure he's going to have an MRI on it, and after that we'll know more. He was limping. You saw it. We all saw that part of it. But, for a guy that, again, getting carted off, it could have been a whole lot worse. And it still may be for all we know, but at least in the short term, it doesn't seem that bad.
Everyone's spirits in the locker room were pretty up, so I don't know if they already have a prognosis, if he was already examined, but it just seemed like everyone was very sigh of relief in there. We'll wait till the doctors tell us officially what it is, but Andrei Iosivas did let it out and said, well, a knee contusion is probably the best case scenario for him. Andrei's not a doctor, even though he went to an Ivy League school, so this could be a very big impact, not only on the offense, but on special teams, because he's the punt returner. I'd say he's probably one of the main guys fighting for that kick returner spot, but this is also a guy who's had a really good camp and was pushing for a lot of playing time.
Yeah, I think it was down to, and again, we're including Jamar Chase going to play week one in the mix. I think it was he and Andrei Iosivas had kind of separated themselves as the guys to be the number 3 receiver. Trent Irwin's probably still in that just because of the trust he has with Joe Burrow, but primarily those two young guys have stepped forward and done some really good things and done some of those good things out of the slot as well. So, yeah, the setback there. It'll be interesting, again, to see how long this is. They've got a weird timetable here. Starting Saturday, they got 5 main events in a 12-day period, 3 games and 2 joint practices. Even if it's a contusion and he's still limited, I don't know how much he plays in these next 2 weeks. So you got some young guys having major opportunities in key settings, not just practice settings and training camp practice settings, but in those joint practices, which are fairly live, and in these games and in the return game as well. Charlie is the punt returner 1, but he's also in the mix to be a kickoff returner. Now maybe somebody else gets an opportunity. I watched Alex Erickson literally make this team as an undrafted rookie, taking a punt back against Minnesota in the first preseason game, and it earned his trust from the coaching staff, and he got more and more opportunities. So, listen, it stinks for Charlie Jones, but it does open up opportunity for other guys, and that's what the preseason's all about.
Let's gaze into the crystal ball, into the reality that is, if Charlie Jones is out a significant amount of the regular season for whatever reason, who now steps into that spot? Because this is a very full wide receiver room with some guys that we've talked about that could be on an NFL roster that are going to have to get cut just because the Bengals have so many.
Yeah, Shedrick Jackson's had a great camp. Kendrick Pryor's had a great camp. Kendrick was one of the last cuts a couple of years ago, and on last cut day, he was sitting in this locker room and found out, the Jacksonville Jaguars have picked me up. So instead of the Bengals, who were waiting to put him on their practice squad, he packed his gear and went to Jacksonville for a period of time. So he's been on an active roster. He didn't play very much, but he's been on an active roster. Hakeem Butler was signed. They love Hakeem Butler. Talked to Trent Walters, the wide receivers coach, a couple of days ago, did a story about him, and he really raved about Hakeem and just his physicals. And he gives him something different. He's 6'5", 227, stronger, bigger receiver. Certainly, kind of Auden Tate-like in a way, and Auden Tate stuck in this league for a period of time. So I think they have enough guys to make up for it. But Charlie Jones was really having a great camp, and you just wonder what might have been and what I guess still could be. And I think that's the thing. I guess we play the waiting game at this point.
Now, this is also a team that has signed a lot of names at defensive tackle and defensive end because they've had to. Cam Sample's out. Now McKinley Jackson, the rookie that they were going to count on to get some significant defensive tackle snaps, he's missed practice. Zach Taylor said he's week to week. If you followed this team over the last few years, week to week could mean the entire season. It could mean next week. Who knows? But the chances that this team needs to go out and find some more depth there up front.
I don't think they do. It's interesting. In the short term, you're missing probably for this game Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard. And you're obviously missing McKinley Jackson. And you're missing Cam Sample. Devonta Maxwell still has not been cleared to practice. Dominique Davis is hurt. Jay Tufele just came back. That's 7 guys off the top of my head. I'm probably missing somebody. But if you start looking at the depth chart, well, Sam and Trey are going to be there when the regular season starts. Joseph Osai and Miles Murphy are behind them. The tackle rotation, that may be the one that's a little bit interesting because you still have Chris Jenkins, you still have B.J. Hill, you still have Sheldon Rankins, Zach Carter's still in the mix. I mean, I'm already to 8 deep right there, and what you're probably only going to keep 9. So while it looks dire, and it's why they've signed some of these other guys, they need to get through the preseason without killing your main guys. I think that's why they signed 3 defensive linemen. I don't think it's that bad, and I don't think they go out on the market. I mean, Jeff Gunner might still be in the mix to make this team, too. So there's Cedric Johnson, the rookie. So they've got guys in the mix, and so for right now, I think they're okay.
All right, last practice before it doesn't count. I was going to say it counts for real, but it doesn't. It's the preseason. Hey, it's still a game. We'll get our football fix on Saturday when Tampa Bay comes for the first preseason game.